Coming up next on the Breakup Vent.
Very solid.
Yeah.
You know, and he and I were both like very sexually active, I guess.
Yes.
Like very, very like open and all that type of stuff.
Right. So you weren't monogamous.
We were never monogamous. Yeah.
Never during the whole 5 years.
Never during the whole thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The entire time I knew him, we were never monogamous.
Even up until the end, y'all were still.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. That was another thing is like I felt like nothing would happen ever unless I made the move. You know, we would never break up. We would never get together. We would never, like, nothing would ever happen unless I pushed for it. And that was true of the relationship itself. After, like, you know, I'm not gonna. Well, the thing that kind of put the kibosh in it is he was like, you keep like talking to me, and I think it's annoying.
What?
So when he used the word annoying, that was my like, okay.
What?
I hope you open back up to me.
All right. Welcome to the Breakup Vent, the number one breakup podcast in the world. I'm here with my good friend.
Yeah.
Neil.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Are you ready to vent?
I am ready to vent.
Take two.
Take two.
Okay, well, let's get into the nitty gritty. So let's talk about your relationships with growing up. Like, were your parents married?
My parents are still married.
They're still married.
They're still married. They were married when I was born.
Okay.
They had been married, 2 or 3 years when I was born.
Okay.
And I'm the oldest of 3. Mm-hmm. So there was no shotgun wedding or anything. Very traditional, very by the book in terms of family structure growing up. And so, yeah, I've only ever known my parents with each other.
Oh.
I've never encountered them dating or breaking up with anyone because, it's just been them together.
So it was very nuclear growing up for you.
Yeah, I grew up in rural Minnesota and so yeah, very small town. Grew up on I grew up on a farm. It wasn't quite a hobby farm because they would rent out the fields to like local farmers who would like do crop rotations of different things at different times. Okay. But yeah, it was very much like an all-American kind of nuclear family growing up in terms of the structure, for sure.
Nice. Okay. And you said you're the oldest of 3.
3. Yeah. I have 2 little sisters.
Oh, 2 little sisters.
They're adorable. Oh. They're not so little anymore.
No, one of them just got married, right?
Yeah. One of them got married last summer.
Yes.
She moved back to Minnesota. So the whole fam's in Minnesota again.
Okay. So. Good times. Okay. Do you think that growing up with such a nuclear type family affected the way you view relationships?
I think a lot about this, actually. I think, yes, I have a pretty progressive view of relationships. I understand the benefits of like monogamy and the nuclear family, especially when you're like raising kids. It like makes sense to like just not rock the boat a lot. But kind of as I've become, I'm gay.
Yes.
So there's the combination of being gay, sort of growing up in a very stable kind of household. It doesn't necessarily make me want to like recreate that kind of relationship per se. It allows me to be like, I've thought a lot that it allows me to be a little bit more experimental. And and I've been in all kinds of relationships, long distance, open, monogamous, monogamish, all the types.
Okay.
And none of it, it all works as long as it works. And so I think that kind of growing up in a nuclear family made me a little fearless about that type of thing.
Okay.
Because I hear horror stories from other people whose like parents or like would fight all the time. There's a million horror stories about growing up in homes where contention was a big problem. For me, my parents, they're not like super like lovey-dovey, but because they're Midwestern people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't show love in the Midwest.
Yeah, they have a certain amount of stoicism about everything. Yes. I always thought that I had a vibrancy, so like that the relationship between sort of my loud, vibrant, emotional, sensitive gay nature and the sort of like quiet stoicism of the Midwest in general did sort of inform how I approach relationships. And I think it gave me a lot of confidence, you know.
Well, that's good. You do have a lot of confidence.
Thank you.
You look very nice today, too.
Thank you. You look great. I love the high-waisted jeans. Yes.
My mom jeans.
The mom jeans are back. And I don't even know why they ever go out of style because they're amazing.
Speaking of mom, do you want children?
I'm pretty take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I think I would be a good dad. And I think if I was with the right partner who was like really child forward, it would have happened. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting towards the age where I'm like, I don't know how much time there is left to like not be an old dad. I don't know if I would want to be an old dad. So yeah, like having your first child after 40 seems hard to me. I'm 37. So getting close. I know people who do it. I know people who love it. And, you know,
it's like, it just depends on the person.
It just depends. Yeah. And so like, if I'm in the right relationship or I have the right sort of like, obviously there's like financial questions. There's so many questions about kids. So like, I'm not in a circumstance right now where that makes sense. So I wouldn't, but I do like kids. I think it would be fun to be a dad. Yeah. And yeah, if the opportunity presented itself and was like really obvious, then I would probably do it. It's also very expensive as a gay man, you know, like,
kids
and
there's
expensive. A lot of logistics and it's never going to happen on accident.
Yeah.
Right. So
if it does, you are.
And I'm acting out of character. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. Well, good to know. So let's get into your last breakup.
Yes.
So how long ago was it that you had a breakup?
It's not necessarily like there was some like iffy, like shorter term things since this, but I'm going to talk about my last big breakup.
Wait, okay. Some iffies?
Is it what?
Some iffies? I'm like, because, you know, we could do a blend here.
We could do a blend.
If you want to. It's up to you.
Well, I mean, it's just like people that I was, you know, just shorter term relationships. Situationships, things that I've definitely had some that blur the line. I'm in a very solid relationship right now.
How long have you been in your current relationship?
A little over a year.
Okay.
So just barely over a year. But I mean, that it absolutely constitutes a pretty real relationship in my mind.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a breakup before that one. Yeah.
So I'm going to go to the breakup before the last significant breakup. So I was engaged, and I broke up with my boyfriend in July of 2023.
Okay.
Yes.
How long were y'all together?
We were together for, it's hard to say, but like we were like pretty solidly together for around 5-ish years.
5 years. So y'all survived COVID.
So we survived COVID. Yeah. I mean, like I don't really have like a clear time when we started dating or became like boyfriends.
When did y'all meet?
We met in like 2014. So I had known him for like I have known him for 11 years at this point.
Okay. So you met in 2014 in
2015, excuse me. Sorry.
So 2015, you met him and you say around 5-ish whenever it ended, which would make it like 2018 when y'all kind of...
2018 when it was like serious, I think. Yeah. When it started to get more serious. But it was definitely like a slow rise, you know? So I don't have like a clear beginning of that relationship.
I got you. Yeah. Do you know when you knew that I want to take this to the next level though? Do you know when that happened?
He sat me down in, I want to say like, I don't exactly remember when. I think like we had been saying I love you for a while, but like he definitely sat me down and he's just like, I don't think you understand how in love with you I am. I remember being on the couch. I don't remember when it was though. Because it was one of those, my relationship with him sort of just, it just like insinuated itself into being very solid. Yeah. You know, and he and I were both like very sexually active, I guess. Yes. Like very, very like open and all that type of stuff.
Right. So you weren't monogamous.
We were never monogamous. Yeah.
Never during the whole 5 years.
Never during the whole thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The entire time I knew him, we were never monogamous.
Even up until the end, y'all were still.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
And so like, yeah, those kind of like delineations never really materialized.
How does that work? I'm curious on because it's basically an open relationship, obviously. Yeah. And it's like, are there rules? Or we
didn't have any rules.
It's just like, okay, you today, somebody else tomorrow, maybe?
I guess, yeah.
Okay.
It was just like, the rules were never important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like nobody else had any, and again, I think some of this is coming from my very like, like there was a point at which like we were obviously together. We were like engaged to be married.
Right.
But like
I think that's where I was kind of going, was that since you got engaged, y'all were like, the marriage probably would have been open as well, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there ever would have been a change in any of that.
Okay.
Neither of us ever got jealous.
That was my next question. I was just like, there was no.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was like, we should certainly like had, like, there were definitely like people that he would sleep with that I didn't like.
Yeah, that's what I was going to.
And I didn't care. Yeah. But neither of us ever got jealous about it, you know? Like,
I was going to say, do y'all share stories? Like, okay, I didn't.
Listen, with every partner, there were friends of theirs that I've liked more and less. You know what I mean? Like, you get along really well with some of their friends and not as well with others.
Right,
sure.
Of course.
You know, that's just human nature. And so, yeah, he had a few regulars that I was just like, ugh, that guy, fine, whatever. But and it was just, as long as you're like respectful and like just like respectful of each other's feelings, acknowledge their autonomy, and it never came up, you know?
Yeah. Unwritten situations. It's like, you know.
And I was just like, oh, you know, he would go out on hookups occasionally or whatever.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. And neither of us really cared. Yeah.
So
that's not what our relationship was about.
What was the decline in the relationship? What took it from engagement to a no? Yeah.
So and I've thought a lot about this too, because this was a really hard breakup for me in general. The decline, I think. So we met back in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
We started dating.
Texas.
Shout out Texas. Yes. I know that you spend a lot of time in Texas.
Y'all already know.
No.
I said y'all already know.
I already know. Yeah. And then there was a lot of there was a lot of external factors. There was a lot of internal factors. I started a company in 2018.
Okay.
That I was at first the CTO of, then I became the CEO. We raised some venture capital, hired a bunch of people, eventually had to lay people off. I got into kerfuffles with investors, all of that type of stuff. You know, like it's very stressful to be running a business, especially a venture-backed business, especially at that time. It was like during COVID, and it was a data company for cryptocurrencies, right? So it was like super high tech.
Yeah,
it was deep in my wheelhouse. I'm a software engineer, and I often struggled many times. Like he was not in tech, and he was not. You know, my career was like shooting up and having this big roller coaster, and he was working as a bouncer at the time. So there was a lot of conflict around not feeling like I was able to be supported emotionally during that time.
Right.
So that was kind of like the first wave of conflict.
When you say you felt like you weren't supported emotionally, was it because he didn't have, I guess, a solid desire in working at like career field? I think
it wasn't so much that. I just think that I don't know that anyone could have supported me during that time. I think the stuff that I was going through was really like, I knew a few other like CEOs and like founders,
Yeah.
and I was able to like talk through some stuff with them.
Okay.
But I don't know if you remember what was going on in crypto at that time, but it was like loud, it was obnoxious, it was mean spirited. There was a lot of nastiness flying around in the crypto space in the 2020, 2021. NFTs were a thing. It was like everything was a scam. Yes. You couldn't figure out who was legitimate, who was trying to scam you. I was being accused of being a scammer just because of the nature of being in crypto. There's all kinds of really nasty stuff flying around.
Yes.
And it was all very weird. And there wasn't like a playbook for any of it. So I did feel just like very alone at that time. Okay. And I was trying to put on a brave face for my company, for my employees, all of this type of stuff. And I, to varying degrees of success. Some days I really had it under control. Some days it was a complete mess. But it was always stressful.
Yeah.
So I did feel like that. And I don't feel like even my other close friends, successful friends, like they still, I felt very alone because I didn't have, not many people could relate to what I was going through. And I know that sounds like boohoo. I was the CEO of a company and like, you should feel bad for me. It's
right.
Not what and like, I was very aware of that dynamic as well.
Right. But that doesn't take away that you're a human being with feelings and you're under a lot of stress. Like that means, that's irrelevant. I mean, you need someone to talk to. Were you ever in therapy during this time?
I eventually was able to like find a therapist, but, I don't know how helpful even he would tell me all the time. Like, he's just like, I don't know how to help you in this. And he's just like, so I talked to like professional development coach type, like at the time, what I was looking for was like professional development because I was like in a little bit over my skis being like a business leader,
Yes.
And like, I'm not, I'm a little bit more on the creative side. I was creative and technical. And then, I sort of inherited this sort of like executive position and then started having to like hire and fire people is really hard. Having to deal with angry investors who are mad that their crypto isn't going up fast enough and they're blaming me. Yeah. And it was a lot of pressure.
Did you communicate any of this to your partner at that time, letting him know that, hey, I feel alone. I'm not satisfied in what's happening?
I absolutely, I did communicate a lot of this and he really just didn't know what to do about it. So he would kind of freeze up. And that would just make me feel more alone. Yeah. And so that was sort of like the first wave of problems. We had like a brief breakup in that time period because I was like, I need to be dedicating myself to this business. Like, was
he getting in the way of that?
No, I don't think that he was. Okay. I think it was just more of like, I didn't have the time to dedicate to it and my problems had suddenly like scaled up in such a way that like, I don't know, like for a while, it sounds like I just felt like sort of being forced into this elitist place almost too. And I don't want to think of myself like that, but when everything's that chaotic, it's sort of just like, well, I don't have time to deal with your little problems. So I wasn't being a supportive partner either. Yeah. And he was freezing up at that same time.
Did he ever express feeling like that you made him feel like, hey, I don't have time for your little problems?
To a certain extent, he did express that. Yeah. And that's not who I want to be. No, of course not. But it was sort of like, it was me not being strong enough to like keep those two things going at the same time, being a supportive partner to him and being a business leader. It was too much. And I started taking things out on him. I was not the best partner either during that time.
Y'all took a break.
Yep.
And how long was the break?
Probably like 3-4 months.
Okay. And in that 3 or 4 months, was there a shift or a change or something that made life a little bit better when it came to work? Or you saying, hey, I think we can make this work now, come back? Or him saying, I want to come back? Or I'm not sure how that went. How did it go?
During that time, it took me a while to realize during that first breakup, like it took me a while to realize that I did miss him.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember feeling like he had, I remember just like in my conversations with him during that time, it was not like a no contact situation.
Mm-hmm.
During my conversations he seemed to be doing some like exploration and betterment and seemed less stuck.
Okay.
And I was just like, this is what I was asking you to just like kind of unstick yourself a little bit. And I was like trying to help him do that.
Did that bother you? Him being in a place where he was kind of stuck and you kind of nudging him?
Yeah, it definitely felt like this is what I was asked. This is what I was trying to get from you to begin with.
Yes.
It's like just like some movement, you know?
Yeah. It sounds kind of parental, if I may. Like, you know, come on, do the
I've gotten rooting. I got a lot of feedback at that time that I was being a parent to him and not
from
a
him?
partner. Not from him.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
From like other people in my life, and they were like, he needs to contribute to it as well.
Yeah.
But
And,
I mean, he just had a different set of priorities.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. So.
But I was like, oh, you are capable of that. You know?
Yeah.
I saw that and I was just like, maybe it's just me.
I was just about to say, do you think he did that to be like, I can do this if I wanted to, I'll show you. Like, that's what it kind of sounds like.
No.
Once he left, he's like, okay, look at this. I'm doing the damn thing. I don't really need you to tell me to do the damn thing. I can do it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think it was like, I don't think it had anything to do with like, I'll show him. I don't think I had anything to do with it.
Right.
You
Okay.
know? I think this was him just being like, I need to find another way to make myself happy because Neil's not around.
Okay.
And so I need to show up for myself. And I think that that's really what I would encourage him to do quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, you're capable of this. I think we both learned that.
Mm-hmm.
And I entered into it being like, I need to like accept you for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to be blindingly ambitious like I am.
Okay.
But when we got back together, like, yeah. And at the time I was like, just going for it, you know?
Right.
And this was probably like I think it was like early 2020. It was either Christmas 21 or 2020. I don't remember.
Right.
Around that time.
Okay.
And yeah, so when we sort of like reconnected afterward, after that stint, I was like recommitted to being like, okay, if you can do this, like I'm having trouble with like the stress of my work.
Yes.
You know, and I'm letting it get in the way of being compassionate. I'm letting it get in the way of being like really like delivering the support that you need as well.
Right. It just sounds like you were carrying a load. It's like, oh,
it was
work.
definitely
and
heavy.
Then going back to, you know, your partner, it's like, it seemed like you were getting no relief in life is what it sounds like.
That's what it felt like, is for sure at the time, you know, and I was like, I was losing hair, you know, I was tearing my hair out.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay. So it was a needed break for sure is what it sounds like.
And and you know, I was like, I'm enough of an adult to know that like I could have a partner who is able to take more of this off my plate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? More of like the house stuff, because I'm really rolling the dice on a really big game here. Right.
But you wanted him.
But I loved him.
Yeah. Y'all loved each other.
Yeah. We loved each other.
Yes. And so y'all got back together to make it work.
Yes. That was the idea. And then, you know, the business.
Who broke it off at that point though? It was me. Yeah, okay. So you broke it off at that point. And were you the one to get back?
Keep doing this. Yes.
Okay.
That was another thing, is like, I felt like nothing would happen ever unless I made the move. You know, we would never break up. We would never get together. We would never, like, nothing would ever happen unless I pushed for it. And that was true of the relationship itself. And that was true in much smaller ways.
Okay.
Right. Basically. And he expressed to me, he's like, this is all your choices. And I was like, I don't want everything to be my decision.
Because you're in it alone. Oh my gosh. It makes sense. Because you're like this whole time you're in it alone and you're doing it. Yeah.
Yes. Oof. Yes.
Was it like this the whole 5 years?
Absolutely.
It was.
He has a very different story than I did.
That was going to be one of my questions. I was just like, what would he say?
I mean, I think that he learned to survive in a very different way than I did. Mm-hmm. And he was
in the relationship or in life? In
life.
Okay.
In life. And that entered into the relationship quite a bit. And I tried to empathize with him, but like doing that all the time with like all the decisions, just it wears you down at a certain point.
It's tiring.
And I do think that he deserves someone who can put him in context, you know, and I tried to be that. And I struggled with it, you know. He grew up, first off, he's a massive human being. He's like 6'5", and like he was like 300 pounds.
Oh, like big, a football player.
Like a football player. Yeah. He was super tall, super wide.
Oh my.
He's from Brooklyn. Grew up single mother.
Stand up.
Yeah. Single mother, kind of in the projects of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So like he had to survive in a much more chaotic environment where mine was like stable and I didn't have to ruffle any feathers. His was entirely unstable. And he had like a lot of gang violence around him.
Whoa.
So he had to make himself small and like never speak up, never make a peep. That was his survival strategy growing up.
This is layered because growing up in Brooklyn, in New York, around gangs, was he open at that time all his life, or did this come later in life?
He had to pick and choose. He had to pick and choose his contexts a lot. To be out, you mean out like openly gay?
Yes, openly gay. Was he openly gay growing up or at any time?
Yeah, he had people who knew.
Okay.
You know, and he was very openly out in Texas, especially when he moved. Yeah. But he had to be very selective about the details that he would reveal about himself growing up quite a bit. And
was his family accepting of it?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like a very different survival strategy. Yes. And as much as I would try to keep that in mind for the sake of the relationship, it's not necessarily like a natural place that I'm starting from. Because my survival strategy is always to seize something, you know, like, okay, you see an opportunity, you have to go for it or else you get left behind.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm looking at this as like, I grew up on a farm and I feel like rural America is getting left behind.
Yes.
And I'm like, you need to get out into society and make a mark and be ambitious and try and grab stuff by the horns. And he learned, he's huge and he's trying to make himself as small as possible and take up the least amount of space possible so he doesn't get noticed, you know? And that's not, of course, people are a multitude. Yes. That's not always true, but like that is one of the default behaviors that he learned.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about your foundation and how you have a belief system and how you carry that throughout life.
Absolutely. So. Just sort of like, where do you start from? And then you have to like actively change your thought process. Yeah. And it's easy to do once in a while, but it's very, very hard to do constantly. So anyways.
So you got back together, and from the time getting back together, when did the engagement happen?
That happened like pretty soon after. I was like, listen, I accept you for having this different mindset. And I kind of like, I wrote out like what I wanted out of the relationship. I gave him like a list of like...
You wrote it out?
I wrote it out.
Okay.
Yes. I wrote it out in this very, very long, like 16-page long thing. And I was just like, listen, I accept who you are. I know we love each other. We both like remarkably have so much openness and so much trust with the sex side of it, honestly.
Yeah.
Like there's no jealousy. It's like a perfect relationship in that respect.
Right.
But I need, you know, I give him a list of like things things that needs that I had from him, like behaviors that it had to change. And I was like,
do you mind sharing? Oh, go ahead.
I'll share some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted him to learn to drive.
Okay. So he never drove.
Yeah. He grew up in New York.
Yes.
But I was like, you've been in Texas for 10 years now, and we're moving to LA because when the business was sort of like on its last legs, I was sort of like, I just need to have a change of scenery.
Yes.
And so we decided to come out to LA. We were like, it could be Minnesota, New York, LA, one of those three places. And he's like, well, I used to live in New York. And I'm like, I used to live in Minnesota. So we're going to LA. It was sort of like,
yes, something new.
Something new for both of us, and that was an opportunity for us to both have a new experience. But I was like, okay, we're going to be living in LA. You got to learn to drive or, apply to school, find some, like, I'll pay for college. I have no problem paying for you to go back to school. Cause he started college, but didn't finish because of family stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, finish your degree. Like I really just wanted him to start to see that life was an opportunity to be seized. And I gave him kind of like a list of like a bunch of different things. And I was like, I don't care which ones of these you do, but like pick at least one and do it. Either get a job in a new career that seems fun to you, or go back to school or learn to drive. And I'm like, some of this stuff is out of your control. I get that. Getting a job you love, you're not the one who makes that decision. Right. And I was like, okay, so that one's somebody else's decision, but like you can go get a driver's license, like you don't need anyone else's permission to do that.
Exactly. Right. And how did he receive this list?
He was amenable to it. And then we were together for about 15 more months. And eventually, like after a year, like none of them had happened.
Nothing.
None of them had.
Did he say he was going to do anything?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he was like, yeah, I'm.
Yeah. And so like it became clear that like I was just getting increasingly frustrated, but I knew that like taking it out on him wouldn't be productive.
Yeah. Oof.
And then it became a thing where it's like he wasn't able to like find work and stuff. So I was like, listen, maybe it's better to like get your old job back in Austin. Like you talk about Austin, you love it. And I was just like, I think we need to break up because you've got a job waiting there, but like none of these other things have happened. And there was some miscommunication. Apparently he was taking driver's lessons and I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
But
in LA. So y'all had moved to LA by this point.
Yeah, we had been in LA for about a year. Okay,
so y'all had been in LA for about a year, and he started taking driving lessons, and you had no idea.
I had no idea. Yeah.
So what's the communication like with y'all? Like, if
I don't know why he wouldn't have told me that.
Right. That's what was just like.
That was a baffling thing to me.
Did you believe him?
Kind of.
Did you see any proof of it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I believe him, but I think that
it sounds like he said that to get you off his back. Like, you don't even know I'm taking driver's license right now. But
I want to approach it in better faith than that.
Yes.
But like, certainly this is what I would be saying to me. You know what I mean?
Right. I was just like, I don't know if he was taking them lessons right now. I mean, maybe he was, but go ahead.
And it's, like I want to extend him as much grace as possible.
So 1 year in LA and he had no job the whole time?
Yeah, he was, well, there was also like another miscommunication where it was hard when he was a bouncer because he would go to work. I would work a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
He would start work at 7.
Yes.
Go till 5 o'clock in the morning. And the kind of like Thursday through Sunday. He was
a bouncer here in LA.
He was a bouncer in Austin.
But he never was a bouncer here.
Right. And so I was just like, well, I don't know why you didn't like go back to nightlife. And he was like, because you hated it. And so this was after we, had already broken up that I heard that.
The first time or the second time?
The second time, like the actual breakup. After the actual breakup, I was just like, I don't know why you like. He was just like, you needed me to have a job. And I was like, there was a bunch of other options.
Yeah. I feel like the communication, because I'm like, I think maybe 1 or 2 days a week would be nothing.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, even if you did hate it, I mean, I'm like, it's 1 or 2 nights, I think you would survive. So
right. And like, and I was like an engineer, and at the time I was like, had a very good job. And so I'm like, I'm not too worried about the money side of it.
You were basically the breadwinner in this relationship.
Yeah. Okay. And that was probably always going to be the case.
Yes,
like I was well established in my career. Like I knew that I was going to be the breadwinner basically forever.
So you both knew the parts that you played in the relationships, right?
Yeah.
And so whenever it became clear to you that he kind of just wanted to maybe live an at-home life, were you okay with that or no?
I would have been okay with that. But like, I did need like, there had to be some like longer term goal.
Okay.
Right.
He had to be a goal. Anything.
Yeah. And I'm like, and like, he was very good about like keeping the place clean and he made sure that like all the mail got answered, all the bills were paid. He was like, he was great there. And I think that I had a different time scale in mind than he did. He just moves a lot slower. And I think that I lost patience. Yes. Which I think was my right to lose patience. Yeah. But I think,
it sounds like
I lost patience.
It sounds like you were getting a lot of excuses. And it also kind of sounds, I mean, that's what it sounds like. Sure. And it also sounds like, I don't think y'all were aligned on what he really wanted. Because it doesn't sound like he wanted those things. Because people do what they want. If he wanted a driver's license, he would have had a driver's license within a year. If he wanted to go back to school, like he would have done these things. And so it just sounds like y'all, but you were like, do something. And he was just like, I don't want to.
Yeah. And I get how that's threatening, to somebody who feels like they're not in control of their own life. Because me as the breadwinner, I can see how he's like, I don't have any agency. And then be like, not want to shake anything up. Yeah. Right. And so as I've gotten some distance from it, I really do. I see that part of it, where it's, but.
So who broke it off? I'm guessing you broke it off the last time.
Yes.
So how did I'm curious, before we get to that, how did the engagement go? Like, was it a whole show?
I got down on the one knee.
Was there a camera person there?
There was like friends of mine around.
And they knew? Stuff. Everybody knew?
There wasn't like camera people. Yeah. Oh, okay. but my friends knew. You know? And he had already said like, yeah, I'll do that, but I want you to propose. And so I was like, okay. Yeah. So I did. Yeah. I mean, he helped me like pick out the rings and everything. So he knew it was coming. But.
So y'all went ring shopping and everything.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was very cute. It was very sweet.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so from the engagement to the actual breakup, how long was that?
That was... But I think like 15 months.
Okay, so that was a 15 months. Yeah.
Maybe like a year. Around
that time. Yeah, 15 months for the year-ish. Okay. And so what was it? What was the day that you said, I have to break this off?
There was the thing that like sort of like the instigating event.
Yes.
Was my sister was getting married. And again, his perspective becomes clearer in retrospect, but basically it was like, okay, I'm officiating.
Oh, okay.
And like, we're staying up there, and I was just like, okay, we'll spend 10 days in Minnesota leading up to and like immediately following this wedding. And he was like, I don't want to spend 10 days up there. And I was like, you're like a part of this family. Like,
yes.
You can do this. And he's like, what am I supposed to do? Just like wait around?
Oh.
I'm not in the wedding. And I was just like, and that very much was like it was like, it definitely in my mind made me question his commitment to the relationship.
I have a lot of questions now after you saying that. Like, it seemed like he had some resentment or dislike at that point. Like, he seemed upset.
He was very hard to read. I think that he's a very stoic person. He like, again, just like, don't show your emotions. Like, these are learned behaviors that really have stuck with him. And so it was very hard for me to read, but I'm like, I bet. And like, I was there, and I was just like, I was worried. I'm like, he's going to find some way to not make it to the wedding.
Oh no.
And then I get a call. Oh no, I missed my flight. My stomach was fucked up, you know? And I was just like, why did I know that this was going to happen? Oof. And then I was just like, you have to make it here. And then he like rebooked a bunch of flights and ended up coming in the middle of the night because he had missed like the good flights, but because there was no buffer time for him to be there. And I was like, I'm officiating my sister's wedding and I'm going to be fucking embarrassed.
Yeah.
If I'm like, my fiance's not here. So yeah, that was the kind of like the instigating event where I was just like, okay, I'm not getting a commitment to what we agreed upon.
Right.
And I was,
yeah. And
I
you
was
knew
like,
it.
and I had to like threaten him into not leaving me at the altar for my sister's wedding, you know?
You had to threaten him?
Oh, I had to be very, very, very angry with him in order to
get him there.
Get off your ass and figure out a way to get here, you know? And he couldn't rent a car. So then he had to like, and it was way out in the wedding was way out in the rural Minnesota. And so, yeah, it became a nightmare. I was like, I wanted you to come with me when I asked you to come with me in the first place.
And I guess I don't get why he didn't come with you. Why didn't y'all go together? I'm guessing he didn't have a job at the time.
Nope.
What was the, see, and that's what I mean when I'm like, he just gave, like you were, and it sounds like, do you feel like you were kind of just a little bit taken advantage of? Because it sounds like you were in love, like that you would accept what was clear. Like it was even clear to you up to the point where he missed his flight. You knew it. So it's like.
I knew it was going to happen. Yeah. And then when it did, it just broke my heart.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was taking certain medications that did fuck with his stomach. So I think that I don't think he's lying about that. But in my mind, I was just like, I asked you to essentially like account for that.
Yeah.
Give yourself more time beforehand to be here, even if you think it's going to be some sitting around. Like it's time with the family. And
but did he make it?
He made it just he got in at like 3:00 in the morning the night before the wedding. Oof. Just like barely. And then I'm officiating the fucking thing. Yeah. So it's like, I have to like,
so you're like pacing all night.
I can't babysit, you know? Like, so anyways.
Yeah. And
then between that and then the other big thing that eventually I think led to the breakup was, we were at like a potluck type thing and he's allergic to shrimp.
Here in LA?
No, this was back in Austin.
Okay.
And I had always been like, yeah, people who grow up in New York oftentimes don't learn to drive. That makes sense to me.
Yes.
That's not that strange. But basically he ended up eating a bunch of shrimp in this dish that he didn't know had shrimp in it. And his throat started closing up. His face swelled up. Oof. And I drove him to the hospital as like calmly and collectedly as I possibly could. But the thing that I couldn't shake after that was like, if the tables had been turned, I just would have died. And I'm just like, you need to like
do the basics.
You need to grab some agency, you know, like you would have just sat there and watched me suffocate, you know, like that was something that I wasn't okay with. So yeah,
it was like a snap into reality. Like,
yes. Where it was just like, this has to happen.
But y'all were living in LA at the time. You were just visiting in Austin, I guess.
No, this was before we even moved to LA. This is what made me be like, you have to get a driver's license. And then LA even exaggerated that further.
And then the event at your sister's wedding. And then that was just it.
Yes. And he may have his license now. I would not be surprised, but I haven't. Yeah, we haven't.
If he's in LA, it's tough to get around this place with all.
He moved back to Austin, so
I mean, even in Texas,
it's just as hard.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's not New York. Like the transportation systems are not like that everywhere else. So you went to him. Like, did you sit him down whenever you broke up with him? Yeah. So y'all sat down,
and I was just like, I think it's best if you go back to Austin for at least a little while, work some. You know, whatever. And we saw each other a few times in the following 6 months. I definitely missed him. And I I really just wanted to like shake him into reality a little bit. that might have been a bit egotistical of me, but it's like I was in a place where I was pretty fed up, and
So he went back to Austin, but it wasn't like, give me the ring back or anything like that. You just said, go back to Austin.
No, I mean, like, we are breaking up, like you're not my boyfriend anymore. Like, maybe there's something for us down the road, but like, I need something to change. Basically, I was just like, I need something to change.
Okay, I see. And then he left.
Okay. And
in cold turkey, no contact at all.
We spoke pretty regularly.
Okay.
And we still said like, I love you and all that type of stuff. And because it was true, and it was just, I was hoping that he was kind of figuring some stuff out. And I went on with my life. And then when we broke up, I got laid off that same week that he left. And because the company laid off half of it that I was working for, laid off half of its
Were you
staff.
still CEO, or
no?
Did you,
this is after.
Oh, okay,
when I left Texas, I left that.
Yes.
behind.
Okay. Got it. So
I
this
gave
is
it back
something
to
new.
my co-founder. I was like too burned out.
Got it. So you got laid off. Okay.
But yeah, I got a new job in the meantime, and then I got laid off the same week. And then I had this really a neighbor with some like pretty severe schizophrenia type stuff, and he had previously. He would shout the N-word at us and call us,
to
all
your
kinds of
boyfriend, because he was
just to anyone who was
he was
nearby.
just saying
but he knew that we were an interracial gay couple, and he would just scream for hours the most heinous stuff. Kept calling the cops on this guy. They wouldn't do anything about it. His grandmother owned the home next door, and so it was nightmarish. I have so much recordings of this person, and the cops would never believe me. But suddenly
after
I didn't have a job.
The recording, they'd be like, "That's not a real recording."
They were like, "Is he threatening anyone in the home?"
Oh,
and
I see.
I was just like, "No, he's threatening me." And so he had a bunch of workout equipment, and so he would try to break down the fence with his workout equipment.
Your fence?
Yeah. He would put a ladder over so he could get up onto my roof and stuff, but I could never prove it.
What?
There was like a ladder that would change directions, and sometimes it would be up on it's because he would scream that I was a pedophile, that he'd seen me climbing trees and jacking off on children beneath. Spoiler alert, I never did that.
No, of course. No.
So this man was just
you said,
crazy.
he was schizophrenic.
That's what I assume, because like nobody is that just like
mentally
unbridled
unstable
violence, you know? So it's unbridled violence. So of course, at that point, I'm not going to ask him to come back into that environment. And suddenly I didn't have a job, so I couldn't prove my income, so I couldn't move.
Oh, I see.
All happened the same week.
It
was a bad week.
Yes.
And so like eventually got a new job. Then I'm like, okay, now I can move somewhere else because now I've got some income that I can prove. And at that point I was like, okay, my stuff is starting to come back together.
Okay.
I might have been too harsh on you. I want to talk through it with Justin. And then by that time he was just like, it's too late. Really? Yeah.
He had moved on, or he didn't?
He had moved on. He had a new guy and all that.
In 3 weeks?
No, this was like 6 months.
Oh, in 6 months
it took me a long time to get the job back.
I see. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. So you were willing to try to make it work out again.
I still loved that man. And at the time it was like, I did make a commitment to like accept you as you are. Yes. And I really was not living up to that commitment when I essentially like pushed you away. And
right.
Now I'm eating my own, what I did.
Right. But this is the thing. In those 6 months, y'all were still talking to each other and saying you love each other, right?
Yeah.
And you had no idea that he was seeing somebody within this time?
Well, it was like someone that from my understanding, I actually don't know like all the details of this, okay. But my understanding, it was someone that he spent a lot of time with when we both lived in Austin, you know? Okay.
So you might know the person.
I might. Yeah.
So
got it. but I mean, that's no skin off my back. The thing is that like he had the opportunity to like process the breakup way before I did because I was dealing with all this other stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And so now having this much time to look back on it in the past, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And I don't feel so bad about it, but like, it really did to like work so hard to get my life back on track and like get safety, housing,
yes,
and some security with a job. And then to be like, I'm so sorry that all of that shit fell apart, whatever. And to be rejected was really difficult.
Yeah.
It really did. It got under my skin for quite some time.
I bet. And whenever you found out that it was done, he's seeing someone else, did y'all cut off all contact at that point or no?
Like the seeing someone else was never part of the problem of that. It was just like, he was just like, you rejected me and I'm done with you for that reason.
Well, it had happened more than once. So I guess
that's true.
So I'm like, what made this time any different?
This time was different just by the duration that he was left to his own devices, and he was going through stuff that he was not sharing with me. So I was sharing with him, like, my difficulties with the job, my difficulties with the house.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how long anything would last. I felt very insecure like the whole time in a variety of different ways. And yeah,
it seemed like he never shared with you though. It's like you said,
he had a tough time being open. Yeah. Or like being like,
the communication seemed very, shaky. Like it just wasn't a consistent way to, because you were like, he's stoic and every now and then he's doing these things and you're like, oh, I didn't know you were doing all these things. I'm just like, he didn't seem like the best communicator, or there wasn't the best communication within the relationship, maybe.
Perhaps. Yeah. And it takes two to tango.
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I certainly, I do think that like I was like too light on the pressure until I was too heavy on the pressure, like,
oh gosh. Yeah.
I was just like, hun, like, what if you learned to drive, like, and I should have been,
you try to change it up too hard.
I thought because I had like written everything down.
Yes.
My needs, like it had been thing, but like people, I don't think that was entirely fair to him. So I want to give him some grace there. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So that happened. It sounds like you said he was doing it to be somewhat resentful. Like, you left me alone, or you left me out there alone for too long.
I think he was very hurt, and I didn't realize the degree of that, So I think he was very, very hurt.
Okay.
And I felt really bad about doing that to him, but I just did not have the
capacity.
Yeah. I just didn't have the capacity to be concerning myself with like what he might be going through.
Right. Because you had so much going on at that time. And so, you had to worry about yourself, because it seemed like this whole time you were worried about him. Now, you were to sink it.
Well, certainly I was like my safety. I was like hiding knives around the house in case this dude broke into my house. And like, it was really bad. It was so hard. You
needed to take care of yourself at that time.
I was very scared for my own safety. So,
yes.
For a long time.
Okay. And so y'all stopped talking did you stop talking after he made it clear that he was hurt about the way it ended? So you never did y'all not have contact after that?
Yeah. The moment I was definitely like trying to get him to, communicate more with me during that time after I had figued my shit out and I had a plan and I was going to move and all this stuff. But I also realized that I was like, this probably isn't going to happen. I would tell myself
he made it clear it's not going to happen, right?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And shortly thereafter, like, I'm not going to, well, the thing that kind of put the kibosh in it is he was like, you keep like talking to me and I think it's annoying.
What?
So when he used the word annoying, that was my like, okay,
what?
I hope you open back up to me. If you don't, I'm not going to communicate with you anymore.
I hate to say this, but it just seems like he just was not that into you around the last year. Like he was just like, it seems like he was kind of vicious in a way, only because of things that were really important to you. Just even if he was this stoic person who didn't communicate well, who came from a background of having to shrink himself and all this, like even that, it's somewhat of an excuse to be not so, you know, so maybe it was for the best in the end, because
I mean, I am in a wonderful relationship now.
Yeah.
That started too soon, and I told him that it was like a little too soon after this when I met this guy.
So how long were you single or annoyed? Because the word he used was
post annoying.
Yes, post annoying.
Yeah.
Did you get into the new relationship?
It was not long enough. It was like 4 weeks.
Okay, listen, 4 weeks is longer than 5 days from one of my.
It's true. But it was not long enough. You know, in my current relationship, I was pretty forthcoming about all of the stuff that I just said to you. And I was like, this is where I am. I think it's like very early after my previous relationship to be starting something new. But it became serious fast. And
How soon did y'all start saying I love you in this relationship?
A few months in. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe
that moment doesn't. I say I love you to my friends and stuff a lot. So
but this isn't
I'm
a friend.
very liberal with that word.
Right, but okay. I mean, it didn't take you 4 weeks to say it. It took you a couple of months to say it. So
you know what? I have
liberal.
no idea. It might have taken 4 days. It's not like a.
It's not like love. It's just love.
Well, yes. That word encompasses too many things.
It does.
You know,
we should have it like, I think in the Hispanic language, it's like love is
amor.
It's amor, and you use it for 20 different reasons. Yeah, but okay, so your new relationship, you're very happy, but it started too soon.
It did start too soon after it, but like we got through that period and I had to sort of like heal in parallel, but like it's fine. Yeah,
I was going to say, did you have some residual from there that carried?
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, totally. Like I think people say that it takes half the amount of time you were together to like get over something. And so I'm even still in that.
Okay.
Like we were together for I consider us being together for like 5 years. So like it's been less than 2.5 years since I broke it off with Justin. So
right.
Maybe I'm still healing. I don't know, but you can't let your life stop. You know,
I'm always curious whenever I'm talking about these breakups. If the person was to come back, would you take them back? If they were like, I feel like you're the one that got away and I can't be without you. Would you go back?
Well, now it's too late.
Yeah. It's true.
I'm in a happy relationship.
Yeah. You're not going to get rid of that for nothing. So, so good for you. Good for you.
Thanks.
Okay. Hey. So do you see yourself moving forward with an engagement with this particular partner?
I'm not going to spoil the ending. Oh my God. Not on the air.
Not on the air?
Yeah.
I had to ask. I always have to ask. It's mandatory.
It's mandatory.
And I want to know. And if it does happen, can I come to the wedding?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to get the guest list together. I mean, no spoilers. No, but I do think it's important to like, have a plan, but also be flexible.
Yes.
And so with my current relationship, he is an equally ambitious individual to me.
I was going to say, it sounds like it might be night and day.
It's equally ambitious, but wants a much more traditional relationship.
Oh, so is it not open?
Interesting. It's not open. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And you're okay with that?
I mean, yeah.
Do you miss it? Because it seems like you had so much.
I'm also not going to say I miss it on the air.
We'll talk behind the scenes.
We'll talk off mic about that. No, but I'm very happy in my relationship.
And it was made clear in the beginning, like this is what we're doing. We're not doing that.
With my new relationship, he made it very clear what he wanted.
Yes.
I didn't totally understand that because I forgot that that's a thing that exists.
You forgot that.
I forgot monogamy existed. Wait, that people take it literally.
Oh, you're like, people are still doing this?
That's very much what my reaction was. I was like, oh, you mean like literally?
Okay.
which is not something that like occurred to me. And it's definitely been like a fun intellectual exercise to be like,
okay,
what is the purpose? You know, like why would someone do this? Why would someone deny themselves for the sake of like why would people preempt jealousy? You know, like it's been fun to ask these questions.
And what are the answers that you've been coming up with?
Oh, we need another hour and a half for that. There's, you know, like there's all kinds of different like relationship strategies that work in different contexts.
Yes,
you know,
of course.
And so like the story of my most recent breakup is one that is like mired in context.
Yeah.
And is when people ask these questions, we tend to boil it down to like, oh, get rid of him, or like, ooh, lock that down. And like the reality is so much more nuanced.
Right. Oh,
you know?
Absolutely.
Hence why there's something to talk about on this podcast.
Yes, always. It was a pleasure to have you here on the Breakup Vent, the #1 breakup podcast in the world.
All right.
Let's give it up for Neil.
Thank you.
All right, I'm out. Mahogany.